You've been chasing something your whole life. You might not even realize it anymore. It's become second nature, like breathing, a quiet hum beneath every decision you make, every goal you set, every risk you take. Happiness. That's the word, the promise, the invisible prize they dangled in front of you since childhood. Work hard, do well, be kind, be smart, be successful, and one day you'll get there. One day you'll be happy. But here's the strange part. No one ever shows you what that looks like. Not really. You're handed 1,000 images, none of them quite right. A perfect body, a perfect house, a perfect partner. But once you touch them, something feels off. The high doesn't last. You're still restless, still searching. And so you run again. Not because you know where you're going, but because stopping feels like failure. What if you've confused movement for meaning? What if the constant pursuit is the very thing stealing your peace? Before you go any further, ask yourself, is this the life you chose or the one you were sold? You didn't choose to chase happiness, it was chosen for you. Long before you had the words to question it, the idea was planted. It was in the cartoons you watched, the stories you were told, the way adults smiled and said things like, as long as you're happy. It sounded noble, it sounded safe, but it was a trap disguised as freedom. Because what no one tells you is that happiness isn't a fixed destination, it's a moving target. Every time you get close, it shifts. Graduate school? You'll be happy. Get a job? You'll be happy. Find the right partner? You'll be happy. But when those things arrive, the feeling doesn't match the hype. There's relief maybe, excitement, sure, but it's temporary. And so you assume you picked the wrong job, the wrong partner, the wrong path, and start chasing something else, not realizing that the promise itself might be broken. We've been sold a mirage, a version of happiness that looks good on a billboard but feels hollow in real life, because it's not built on presence, it's built on acquisition. Once you have this, once you achieve that, once they love you, see you, validate you, then you'll finally feel okay. But do you? Do you really? This kind of happiness is fragile. It relies on conditions you can't fully control. Your body, your income, the way people treat you, the way life unfolds. If one piece falls out of place, your entire emotional state crumbles. It makes you easy to manipulate, easy to sell to, easy to keep unsatisfied, because satisfaction would mean you're no longer a customer. So what happens? You start to chase harder, you work longer hours, upgrade your life, take more photos, read more books, follow more gurus. But the feeling doesn't last. The emptiness returns. And deep down, you begin to wonder, is it me? Am I broken? You're not broken. You've just been following a script that was never meant to fulfill you, only to keep you running. And the worst part is, it's not your fault. You inherited this story from parents who were doing their best, from a society that measures worth by productivity, from a culture that equates joy with consumption. But now you're old enough to question it, to pause, to ask, what is happiness? And more importantly, who decided that chasing it should be the purpose of my life? Until you answer that, you'll stay stuck in the loop, mistaking the thrill of pursuit for the feeling of peace, always moving, never arriving. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop running. There's a reason people keep chasing happiness, even when it hurts them. It's addictive, not in the way a substance is, but in the way a feeling can become a high, a hit of dopamine after good news, the rush of attention when someone validates you, the glow of achievement when you finally cross the finish line. It feels real. It feels earned. And so you start to crave it. But the problem with any high is the crash that follows. And happiness, as we've been taught to experience it, is built entirely on peaks. It thrives on the extraordinary. The promotion, the vacation, the praise, the romance. But what about the space in between? The quiet days, the routine moments, the stillness? We've been conditioned to treat those moments as empty, as failures even, as if the absence of excitement means something's wrong. But that's not true. That's just the mindset of someone who's been emotionally trained to expect stimulation, constantly. When you chase happiness the way we've been taught, you start to fear normalcy. You start to panic in silence. You feel anxious without external proof that you're winning. And when the feeling disappears, as it always does, you interpret that as a personal flaw. You begin to ask, why can't I stay happy? Why does it always fade? But here's the hard truth. Because it's meant to fade. Not because you're broken, but because emotions are designed to move. Happiness isn't a state to live in. It's a signal. It flares up to tell you when something aligns. And then it subsides, making room for everything else. Contentment, sadness, boredom, reflection. But that's not how we've been taught to relate to it. We've been taught to cling, to fear its absence, to equate its fading with failure. And that makes us emotionally fragile, always needing a hit, always needing more. So what happens? We manipulate our own lives just to feel something. We leave people who are good to us because they don't give us butterflies anymore. We sabotage calm jobs for more exciting ones. We abandon steady routines in search of something that feels more alive. But aliveness isn't always loud, and peace isn't always thrilling. Somewhere along the line, we confused happiness with intensity. And now we don't know how to sit still without feeling like we're missing something. But you're not missing anything. You're just detoxing from a culture that taught you to treat happiness like a drug. And until you learn to find meaning in the spaces in between, you'll always be chasing that next high and calling it purpose. There's a story you've been telling yourself, even if you don't realize it. A quiet narrative that hums in the background of your mind, shaping your every move. It goes something like this. If I can just get there, everything will be okay. If I can just fix this, then I'll finally feel whole. If I can just arrive, I'll be happy. It's the myth of arrival, the illusion that one day some version of the future will rescue you from the weight of the present. It makes you believe that happiness lives in a time that hasn't come yet, a better version of you, a different place, a new chapter, something more. And so you chase it. You move through your life like it's a waiting room, always preparing, always delaying joy until some imaginary finish line is crossed. But the truth no one wants to admit is, there is no finish line, not the kind you're hoping for. Because even when you reach the place you once dreamed of, it won't feel the way you imagine. You'll feel relief maybe, but it won't last. Your mind will quickly adjust, normalize it, and start scanning for the next thing, the next fix, the next goal, the next reason to delay happiness again. And so the myth continues. Arrival is a moving concept. You never actually get there, because the definition of there shifts the moment you approach it. Like a mirage in the desert, the closer you get, the farther it seems. You were never taught how to be present, only how to achieve, only how to reach, only how to keep going, no matter the cost. But here's the dangerous part. If you don't question this myth, you'll live your entire life postponing peace. You'll keep telling yourself, I'll be happy when, I'll be okay if, and when those moments arrive and the emptiness remains, you'll think the problem is you. It's not. The problem is the story, the belief that life only has value once you've earned your right to enjoy it, that happiness is something external you need to conquer. But that mindset leaves you powerless. It makes you a slave to the future, always sacrificing today for a tomorrow that never fully arrives. So ask yourself, what if there is no there? What if this, right now, is all you ever truly have? Would you still wait to feel alive? Because if you're always chasing the end of the race, you'll miss the fact that life was happening the whole time, in the pauses, in the detours, in the messy, unscripted in-between. Maybe it's not about arrival, maybe it never was. If you really want to understand why happiness feels so elusive, you have to ask a harder question. Whose happiness are you even chasing? Is it yours, or was it assigned to you? Because the world is very good at telling you what you should want. It whispers in your feed. It screams in advertisements. It smiles through influencers, actors, friends, people who seem to have it all. And without realizing it, you begin to download these images of happiness into your mind. A house in a quiet suburb, a six-figure income, an attractive partner, a passport filled with stamps, a morning routine that looks like a commercial, a body that never changes, a life that constantly sparkles. But here's the catch. You don't stop to ask whether you ever wanted those things. You just assume they must be important because everyone else seems to be chasing them. And everyone else can't be wrong, right? But they can, and often they are. You live in a system that profits off your dissatisfaction, a machine that survives by keeping you in a loop of almost happy. Just one more product, just one more upgrade, just one more achievement, and then finally you'll feel complete. But the goalpost always moves, by design. And here's the thing most people never realize. When your desires are manufactured, your happiness becomes unfulfilling because it's not rooted in you. It's rooted in someone else's agenda, someone else's definition of success, someone else's story, not yours. So even when you win, it doesn't feel like your victory. Even when you get what you thought you wanted, it leaves you hollow. And the voice in your head starts whispering again, maybe if you just had more. And so the cycle continues. Real happiness, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from getting what everyone else wants. It comes from knowing what you want. Truly, honestly, without performance, without influence, without fear of disappointing someone. But that kind of clarity is terrifying because it means breaking away from the herd. It means saying no to things that look good on paper. It means risking judgment, confusion, and even loneliness. And most people aren't willing to go that far. So they settle for a version of happiness that isn't real. That looks good in photos, but feels empty behind closed doors. They convince themselves it's enough because questioning it would unravel everything. But what if you did question it? What if you looked at your life, really looked, and asked, is this mine? Not inherited, not marketed, not copied, but chosen. Until you do, you'll keep trying to solve a puzzle with the wrong pieces, and you'll call it normal. There's a cost to chasing happiness, one that most people don't notice until it's too late. It's subtle. It creeps in slowly, but over time, it takes everything from you. It starts with time, because when you're chasing something, you're never fully here. You're always leaning forward into the next goal, the next version of yourself, the next big win. And that means you miss what's right in front of you. The small laughs, the quiet mornings, the friendships that don't serve a purpose but feel good anyway. They get sacrificed. Why? Because you're busy, because you're building, because happiness is coming, just not yet. Then it takes your peace, because constant striving creates tension. Even when you're resting, you feel guilty. Even when you're doing well, it's not enough. You start to measure yourself by progress, not presence. And in doing so, you become a prisoner of your own expectations. Soon it begins to reshape your identity. You don't just chase success, you become the chase. You're no longer a person, you're a project. Always in development, always fixing, always one step away from being done. But here's the thing, you're not a product. You're not meant to be optimized. You're meant to be experienced. When happiness becomes the end goal of every action, every moment becomes a transaction. Every smile becomes a strategy. Every connection becomes a means to an end. And life itself becomes one long waiting game. A bet you keep placing, hoping for the payout that never comes. And in the process, you lose the ability to simply be, to sit in silence without needing a reason, to enjoy something without documenting it, to rest without justifying it. Even your emotions get filtered. You start to judge yourself for sadness, for boredom, for stillness. You ask, what's wrong with me? Because somewhere you internalize the idea that being happy all the time is the standard, that anything less is a failure. But that standard is a lie, an emotional scam. Real life is messy, it's layered, it's full of contradiction, and happiness in its purest form often sneaks in when you're not looking, when you're not trying, when you're just living. But when your life becomes one long pursuit, you never give those moments a chance to breathe. You rush past them, you treat them like background noise. And then you wonder why nothing feels like enough. The truth is, happiness was never meant to be hunted. It was meant to be noticed. But to notice, you have to stop. Stop running. Stop fixing. Stop believing that your worth depends on how close you are to some imaginary finish line. Because if you keep chasing happiness like it's out there somewhere, you'll never realize it might have been quietly waiting for you right here. If the pursuit of happiness hasn't worked, if it's left you tired, disappointed, confused, then maybe the problem isn't you. Maybe the problem is the pursuit itself. You've been taught to treat happiness like a trophy, something to strive for, to earn, to capture and hold on to. But trophies sit on shelves. They don't change. They don't grow. They don't feel. You're not here to win a trophy. You're here to live a life. And those are two very different things. Happiness is not the goal. It's a byproduct, a symptom. It's what happens when your life aligns with your values, when your actions reflect your truth, when you're not pretending, performing, or perfecting, just being. But to feel that kind of happiness, you have to stop chasing someone else's version of it. You have to start building your own. That means asking better questions, not what will make me happy, but what makes me feel connected. Not how do I win, but what feels real. Not how do I get more, but what do I already have that I've been ignoring? Because the people who feel the deepest joy aren't the ones with the most polished lives. They're the ones who've stopped trying to escape themselves. They're the ones who can sit in discomfort and not run. The ones who can cry without shame, laugh without filters, love without guarantees. They've stopped performing happiness. They've started living honestly. And here's the paradox. The less you chase happiness, the more it visits you. In the quiet moments, the unexpected gestures, the way your breath feels when you finally let go. That's not Instagram happiness. It's not the stuff you post. It's the stuff you remember when you're alone and calm and no one's watching. But you can't get there if you're still sprinting. You can't feel it if your life is always moving at the speed of survival. You have to slow down, to listen, to stop performing success and start pursuing meaning. So maybe it's time to redefine what matters. Not happiness as a goal, but as a signal. Not a destination, but a side effect. Not something to earn, but something to recognize. You won't always feel it, and that's okay. Life isn't supposed to be one long celebration. Some days are hard, some moments are quiet. But that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're alive. So ask yourself this: if no one could see your life, not your income, not your status, not your smile, would you still live it the same way? If the answer is no, then happiness was never your goal. Performance was, and you deserve better than that. So, what if you just stopped? Stop chasing. Stop performing. Stop trying to make every moment feel like a highlight reel. What would happen? Would the world fall apart? Would your life collapse? Or would you, for the first time in a long time, breathe? This isn't about giving up, it's about letting go. Of an idea that was never yours. Of a goal that never felt real. Of the exhausting pressure to always be better, happier, more. Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were just tired. Tired from running toward a moving target. Tired from asking your life to look perfect instead of feel true. Tired from ignoring your own voice beneath the noise. And now, you have a choice: to keep running or to stop. Not because you've given up on life, but because you've decided to actually live it. When you stop chasing happiness, you start noticing it. In the smallest things: the sound of your friend's laughter, the warmth of sunlight through your window, the way you feel when you're honest with someone, including yourself. That's not the flashy kind of happiness. It doesn't trend. It doesn't get likes. But it's real. And real always lasts longer than impressive. Maybe happiness was never supposed to be the goal. Maybe it was just supposed to be a companion, one that joins you when you're walking in the right direction. Not every day, not constantly, but often enough to remind you that you're home. You were sold the idea that happiness is the reward for a life well managed, but maybe happiness is just the echo of a life well loved. Not perfect, not polished, just honest, messy, human. So here's the question that matters now. Not are you happy, but are you free? Free to feel all of it. Free to choose your own path. Free to slow down. Free to live a life that feels like yours. Because if you find freedom, joy will follow. Peace will visit. Happiness won't be a goal anymore. It'll be a quiet presence that arrives when you're not trying so hard to impress it. So no, maybe the pursuit of happiness isn't worth it. Not the way we were taught, but living, being present, loving the people in front of you, noticing the beauty in the ordinary, that's worth everything. And maybe, just maybe, when you finally stop chasing, that's when happiness finds you. If this video made you pause, even for a second, good. That pause is where change begins. You've spent so much time running, reaching, proving, but now you see it. The race was never yours to begin with, and you don't need to outrun your life to find peace. You just need to return to it. So take this with you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. The version of happiness you were chasing, you're allowed to outgrow it. You're allowed to define joy on your own terms. You're allowed to stop, not to quit, but to begin again. And if you do, you just might discover that happiness isn't something you find at the end of the path. It's the way you choose to walk it.